About a week and a half ago, I asked you guys to let me know down below in the comments of a video what one from every team video you would like to see next, and by far the most popular comment was from 12Lego2, who said, do the most overpaid and most underpaid players from every NHL team, and it had 268 likes, so that's exactly what we're going to do, and as you can tell by the title, we're going to be starting off with the most underpaid player from every team, and keyword there is most underpaid player. It isn't necessarily the player on the best contract, because term doesn't really matter here. We're only going to be focusing on the cap hits, and this should go without saying, but entry-level contracts do not count, or they would make up 95% of the list. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to go in reverse alphabetical order today just to change things up, so we're going from Winnipeg to Anaheim instead of from Anaheim to Winnipeg. My pick for the Winnipeg Jets, this is a pretty easy one. I'm going with Mark Scheifele, who has a cap hit of $6.125 million. He is having a bit of a rough start to the season. He looks to be heating up though, as he just had a hat trick in the Jets last game. Hopefully that can get him going. And even though this list is heavily based off of what we've seen recently, still feel like I gotta give Mark Scheifele the benefit of the doubt, who's just been so consistent and one of the better offensive centermen in the league over the past 5 to 6 years. The Washington Capitals, I feel like it has to be defenseman Nick Jensen, who's one of the more underrated defenders in the league, a cap hit of just $2.5 million. He's got 9 points in 25 games, and his defensive analytics are off the charts. And also, I know plus minus isn't the greatest stat to judge a player by, but Nick Jensen's plus 20 is actually tied for third best in the league. He's having a great season. The Vegas Golden Knights, this one was a very easy choice for me. I'm going with centerman Chandler Stevenson, who has a cap hit of just $2.75 million. He continues to get better and better ever since coming over from Washington to Vegas. He was really good last season, and he's gotten even better this season, and also he's carried a lot of the workload on his shoulders this year when you consider how a lot of Vegas's top players have missed a good chunk of time this season. Stevenson has been a mainstay in the lineup, and they've relied on him a lot, and that's reflected in his ice time, and he's done really well. The Vancouver Canucks, I definitely feel like right now it has to be Connor Garland. The team is having a miserable year. Everybody knows that, but Connor Garland has definitely been one of the few bright spots. He's consistently been one of the few forwards on the Vancouver Canucks where you know what you're going to get from him every single night. He doesn't take games off. He doesn't look like he's disengaged out there. If the season were to end today, I feel like you could definitely make a strong case that Connor Garland has been the Canucks' best forward this season. I feel like it's probably between him and Höglander. The Toronto Maple Leafs, another really easy one. It has to be goaltender Jack Campbell, who has a cap hit of just $1.65 million. He's in for a big raise this offseason. From the start of last season up until right now, in that period of time, I think there's a case to be made that Jack Campbell has been the best goaltender in the league. A lot of people didn't think his numbers from last year would be sustainable, including myself. I figured we'd see a pretty significant decrease. That certainly has not been the case though, and he's actually gotten better this season, which is nuts. A .942 save percentage, a 13.57 goals saved above expected. I mean, those numbers are ridiculous. The Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm going to go with the defenseman Victor Hedman, who has a cap hit of $7.875 million. I think that may be the highest cap hit we'll see in this video, but it's still a steal for Victor Hedman, who has been a top 3 defenseman at worst over the past 7 NHL seasons. He's won a Norris Trophy and a Conn Smythe during that time period, obviously the 2 Stanley Cups, and he's probably going to be in the Norris Trophy conversation again this year. The St. Louis Blues, this is the only team I actually picked 2 players for in the entire video. It's a tie for me. First, Jordan Kyrou, a cap hit of $2.8 million. What a bridge deal that has turned out to be. He has probably been St. Louis's most lethal offensive forward this season, and the player that he's tied with is Robert Thomas, who also has a cap hit of $2.8 million and has also been one of the Blues' more lethal offensive forwards this season. He's already got 20 assists in 24 games. The fact that the St. Louis Blues have Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou signed to a combined cap hit of $5.6 million, not just for this season but next season as well, seems unfair. The Seattle Kraken, I'm definitely going to go with Jared McCann, who has a cap hit of $2.94 million. He's got 10 goals in 19 games this season. That's a really good pace. I believe he scored at above a 25 goal pace last season. He's a really sneaky good goal scorer. The San Jose Sharks, a player I've talked a good amount about so far this season, James Reimer, who has a cap hit of $2.25 million this season and next. He's 8-4-1, has a .934 save percentage on the year. He's just given the San Jose Sharks fantastic performances basically every time he's been in the net this season, with the exception of that one game against the Maple Leafs. Moving along now to the Pittsburgh Penguins, we have another goaltender here, Tristan Jarry, who has a cap hit of $3.5 million. Man, has he ever bounced back in a big way after his poor performance in the 2021 playoffs. He's definitely been one of the better goaltenders in the NHL this season. If Jarry continues to play like this throughout the season and Crosby keeps getting better every single game he's been back and they eventually get Malkin back, it should be yet another year where we see the Penguins in the playoffs. The Philadelphia Flyers, I'm definitely going with centerman Sean Couturier, a cap hit of about $4.3 million. There's a lot of threes there. He's been one of the better two-way centermen in the NHL for a while now. He does, however, have a pretty lucrative contract extension that kicks in next season, so he's not going to be underpaid for much longer, but for this season, I definitely think he's the most underpaid player on the Flyers. The Ottawa Senators, I'm going to go with Connor Brown, who has a cap hit of $3.6 million. He's just one of those players that can do a little bit of everything. He can play up and down the lineup. He can play on both special teams. The Senators rely on him a ton. He's one of their more important forwards. He plays over 20 minutes a night. I feel like any team in the league would love to have a player like Connor Brown at $3.6 million. The New York Rangers, I'm going to go with their goaltender Igor Shesterkin, a cap hit of, we'll say, $5.7 million. He has been an absolute beast this season, a big reason why the Rangers are having so much success. If the season were to end today, I feel like the Vezina trophy would definitely be between Shesterkin and Jack Campbell, and maybe throw Tristan Jarry and Bob into the conversation as well. Moving on now to the New York Islanders, I'm going to go with another goaltender here and say their most underpaid player is Ilya Sorokin. He's making $4 million this season, and although the New York Islanders as a team are just having a miserable year, it's no fault to Sorokin because he's definitely been their MVP. The New Jersey Devils, a team that in terms of forwards has a lot of really solid value deals. Honorable mentions to Andreas Johnsson, Pavel Zacha, but I definitely think it has to be Jesper Bratt, who's making $2.75 million right now. He's actually leading the Devils in scoring with 19 points in 22 games. He's scored 30 or more points every single season he's played in the league, but this year it seems like he's really going to break out and probably score between 50 and 60 points. The Nashville Predators, I'm going with another goaltender here. There's been a lot of goaltenders on the list up until this point. UC Saros, who has a cap hit of $5 million. He's been fantastic again this season, just like he was last season. He's one of the best young goaltenders in the league. I'd put him right there in the conversation with guys like Igor Shesterkin and Ilya Sorokin. Having a goaltender like him for $5 million is pretty good value. The Montreal Canadiens, for their most underpaid player, I'm going to give it to Tyler Toffoli, who's making $4.25 million. He led the team in goals and points last season, and although he's not scoring goals at quite the rate he was last season, this season, he's still leading the team in points. The Minnesota Wild, I got to go with Ryan Hartman, who has been one of the more surprising players, not just on the Wild, but in the entire league this season. He's making $1.7 million. He actually just signed that extension in the offseason. He's already up to 13 goals, which leads the team in that category in just 24 games. He didn't even score 13 goals in 51 games last season. He didn't even score 13 goals in 69 games the year before. You see where I'm going with this. I've noticed he's actually also been playing a little bit of first line center for the Minnesota Wild here and there this season as well. He's turned into such an important player for them, and for $1.7 million, I mean, they got to be pretty happy about that. The Los Angeles Kings, I'm going to go with Alex Iafallo, who has a cap hit of $4 million, a player who's really developed nicely, I would say, behind Anze Kopitar. He's probably the second most valuable forward for the LA Kings at this point. I'd say it's between him and Adrian Kempe. The Florida Panthers, this one is a no-brainer. It's Alexander Barkov, who has a cap hit of $5.9 million this season. He's been one of the best centers in the league for a long time now, but like I mentioned with Sean Couturier, he's another one of those players who has a pretty big extension kicking in next season, so this is the last season he'll be underpaid. The Edmonton Oilers, you could make a case for Draisaitl because he should be making probably closer to what McDavid makes, but I'm actually going to go with Jesse Puljujarvi because he only makes $1.175 million this season, and he's probably Edmonton's third or fourth most valuable forward. I feel like any one of him, Hyman, or Nugent Hopkins are kind of in that conversation. It's really nice to see Puljujarvi become this good of a player, though, especially for the Edmonton Oilers when you consider how things were, 2 years ago at this point for Puljujarvi and the Oilers. The Detroit Red Wings, I didn't have to think too long about this one. Definitely going to go with goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic, who has a cap hit of $3 million. This man is 8-3-3 with a .920 save percentage on the Red Wings. He's such a big reason why they're actually currently sitting in a playoff spot. I would say at least half of his wins are games that he's literally stolen the Wings, games that the Wings had no business winning. The Dallas Stars, I definitely have to give a pretty big honorable mention to John Klingberg, but I'm going with Roope Hintz, who I think is on one of the better value contracts in the league, a cap hit of just $3.15 million. Got off to a pretty slow start this season, but he's really picked it up, and just like that is up to 10 goals and 15 points in 21 games. He also scored at like a 90 plus point pace last season. Roope Hintz is fantastic and arguably the best forward on the Dallas Stars. The Columbus Blue Jackets, I definitely have to go with their captain, Boone Jenner, who has a cap hit of $3.75 million. He's already up to 11 goals in 22 games of the series, scoring at a pretty solid pace for his standards. He's one of those players who, similar to the way I talked about Connor Brown earlier in the video, he can do a little bit of everything. He can play anywhere in the lineup on either special teams, and obviously he's a pretty big locker room presence for this team with him being their captain. $3.75 million for Boone Jenner, and everything he brings to the table for the Blue Jackets I think is a great deal. The Colorado Avalanche, this one is pretty obviously Nathan MacKinnon, a cap hit of $6.3 million for a top 3, at worst top 4 centerman in the National Hockey League. He's not scoring goals at quite the rate I'm sure he would like to this season, but still 16 points in 11 games. He's ridiculous and probably should be making like north of $11 million, which he eventually will one day, I'm sure. The Chicago Blackhawks, they're paying a lot of their top guys pretty big bucks. For the most underpaid player, I'm actually going to go with Brandon Hagel, who makes $1.5 million. He's really came on strong this season. He's scoring at a half a point per game clip, proving that he's more than just, a bottom 6 energy forward. And it seems like Hawks fans really like this guy as well. When I didn't pick anyone for the Blackhawks in my most surprising player from every team video, the comment section after I uploaded it was just filled with Hawks fans saying it should have been Brandon Hagel as my pick. Moving on now to the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm going to go with defenseman Jacob Slavin, a $5.3 million cap hit. I feel like his contract has been one of the better value contracts in the league over the past couple of seasons and will likely continue to be. Slavin is fantastic. Obviously he gets a lot of credit for how good he is defensively, and rightfully so, but I feel like he's pretty underrated offensively as well. He's had 4 seasons with 30 or more points. He's a really good puck mover, and he does have 11 points already in 23 games. The Calgary Flames, I feel like there's only one right answer here, and it's Andrew Mangiapane. 16 goals already in 24 games. He's a player that a lot of people are throwing his name out there as a potential dark horse to make Team Canada. He was on their 55 player list. This is a player that will likely not be underpaid for very long though, because he's an RFA at the end of the season, and I imagine he's going to get a pretty significant raise. The Buffalo Sabres, I'll give an honorable mention to Tage Thompson, who's having a really nice season, but their best forward in my eyes is Victor Olofsson, and he's only making $3.05 million. He's got 15 points in 16 games this season. He's not just a product of, playing with Jack Eichel and playing with Sam Reinhart in years past. He's a really good player. He's lethal on the power play, and he's a guy that I expect Buffalo to probably hang on to and try to keep around and stick it out through this rebuild. The Boston Bruins, you could literally pick any one of Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, and Brad Marchand, and it would be the right answer. For me, of the 3, I'm going to go with Brad Marchand. I think he's the MVP of this team. He's the straw that stirs the drink. A cap hit of just $6.125 million for a player that, compared to other players in the league who have put up similar totals to him over the past 4 or 5 seasons, he probably should be making north of $10 million. The Coyotes, I definitely have to go with defenseman Jacob Chychrun. Not really having the greatest season. Obviously, we've seen a pretty significant decrease in his totals from this year to last season, where he literally got Norris Trophy votes, but I mean, that's kind of to be expected. The Arizona Coyotes are a very bad team, and he plays a lot. He plays over 25 minutes a night. Doesn't really have a whole lot of help there, so I'm not really too discouraged by his numbers, especially when you consider what he showed us he can do last season. And now for the final team of the video, the Anaheim Ducks, definitely got to go with Troy Terry on this one, a cap hit of just $1.45 million. He's been one of the league's biggest breakout stars from this season. 15 goals, 25 points in 24 games. He's been a beast. Not even just offensively either. His defensive analytics have been fantastic, so he's putting up good results at both ends of the ice. $1.45 million for Troy Terry is highway robbery, and they have him signed to that deal through next season as well. So that is going to wrap up today's video, going over the most underpaid player from all 32 NHL teams, obviously excluding entry-level contracts. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts, especially if you disagreed with any of my picks. Be sure to let me know who you would pick for that team. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see the most overpaid player from every team as soon as possible, then be sure to get down there, let me know you enjoyed, and leave the video a like. I'd really appreciate it. And of course, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.